Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to my seminar. We're just going to do a brief thing over a little bit in or outs about dog training, specifically about what is positive dog training. That's a question I get a lot. I also am going to kind of go over why is dog training important, what benefits can you get. That's going to kind of lead into dog behavior. Sorry. So as I get going in this, you can feel free to ask questions. I'll be watching for any questions coming through. If you want to put them in all caps, that way I can see them, point them out from the chatter. A little bit about myself, as this is the first time kind of getting to know me. I'm Racina. I am the dog trainer at Barker Canine Academy, like the only dog trainer right now, or maybe in the future we'll grow a little bit more. And so right now it's just me. I have worked as a veterinary technician for quite some time. Can't think of the years at the moment. But I went back to school in 2017, I think, because I wanted to become a licensed veterinary technician. So you have to do more schooling to do that. And while I was in school, I decided I would take up a job, a part-time job, but I still wanted to kind of stay in the animal prospect and hopefully be able to benefit myself more as a veterinary technician. So I did start working as a dog trainer, and I did that for almost a year. And I really found that I really enjoyed doing dog training, more so than I had originally anticipated, because I had more focused on the veterinary part of it, the medical part of it. I hadn't really focused on like the behavioral part of it before. So when I started learning more about the behavior and all of that, I found that I really enjoyed it, having that connection with the dogs, having that connection with the owners, and helping the animal's health, not only on a medical side, but on a behavioral side as well. So that's why I started doing dog training. I am a licensed vet tech now. Okay, sorry guys, we were having some technical difficulties there. Hopefully that doesn't continue to happen. So I'll try to pick up where I hopefully kind of left off. I'm not exactly sure where the last video dropped off at. So I was working as a dog trainer while doing school. I am now currently a licensed veterinary technician that I do that job full time. So then I kind of missed dog training. I missed having that behavioral aspect and helping animals on a different level than just medical. So that's why I started Barker Canine Academy, so that I can do both my loves. So let's go ahead and get it started. We'll kind of go over a few things here, going over the curriculum. So positive dog training. That is kind of contradictory to what we as generalized people are used to training our dogs. Most of us, as me included, were raised where a dog soils in the floor and you put your nose in the dog's nose in it and spank them and say no. So that's the way, that's the way my parents raised our dogs. That's the way, all of that. And we're learning in general in the field, have been learning that this isn't always the best way to train. Yes, it is a way of training, but it's not always the best way. They don't learn as quickly, or they're more in fear. And we'll kind of touch into that a little bit more as we get on. But really right now, what I want to focus on is what exactly is positive dog training. So positive dog training is defined as a method, is defined by the AKC as a method that focuses on telling your dog when they have performed a correct behavior. Hi, Jessica. Nice to see you. So what is a correct behavior? And instead of pointing out what is incorrect behavior, we are pointing out what is correct behavior. And we do this in many ways. The main way is a marker word, where we mark that behavior. And in most cases, when I'm doing dog training, I use yes. Some people, I should say, I don't always use yes, but some people say, you know, good boy, good girl. I kind of combine the two and say yes, good girl, or yes, good boy. But the main thing, the main focus that you're looking for is that yes. And the reason why I like yes in particular is because it's a short word and you can say it pretty similar each time because of its shortness, and it has that yeah and that sound to it. So you can really like emphasize it, yes. So as soon as you use that marker word, they know I've done something good. Setting up that marker word is pretty easy to do, honestly. We do that in my first class that you have with me. That's the first thing that we do, is we're going to set up that marker word. And we just get their attention by saying their name, and I kind of call that the name game. So we get them to get their attention when they're looking away, and then you say their name, and the moment you make eye contact with them, you're going to mark it yes and then give a treat. And that's kind of a fun game to play when we're sitting on the couch or whatever. And that does a couple of different things. That helps reinforce their name, as well as doing that marker word. And then, excuse me, I'm trying to get to a clicker, because you can also replace the marker word with the clicker. Let me grab that out. And some people go back and forth on whether they like the clicker. I think it's just as equally effective as yes. The nice thing with the clicker, though, is that it makes the exact same sound because it's a clicker. And a clicker is just it's a little mechanism you can see here. And there's this middle piece in here that moves. And when you push on it, it just makes a noise. And that's it. And the reason why this works really good for replacing the marker word with clicker is because you can say yes in many different terms. Yes, yeah, yeah, you know, and sometimes it changes. That's why you have to really focus on how you're saying it. You want it to be as similar as possible. Yes. But with the clicker, you don't have to think about that so much. It's just as simple as, and then reward with the treat. So that's the main thing there. And so you have to do what's going to be best for you. And I say this a million times. I'm going to continue to say it probably in every live seminar I do. There is no cookie cutter way to do dog training. What works for one dog is not going to work for another dog. What works for one owner isn't going to work for another. And the owner is a factor in this. It's not just about the dog. It's also about what is effective, what is easiest for the owner of the dog as well. So with this, and it's a positive reward, so they know, like, let's say for instance, learning sit. If they know when they put their rump on the floor and they hear that sound, or yes, they know a treat is coming. They know that they have done something good. So it's not about, oh, you're not sitting, so we're going to do this or that. And the old method of training, the traditional method of training, is just that, where, oh, you have to listen to me and all of that. So this is where positive dog training comes involved. So we're going to teach them by the good that they give. So for instance, I use a lot of child raising in scenarios because they're very, very similar in a lot of ways, dogs to young children, like toddlers. So what's the easiest way to let your child know that they've done something right? You know, if they do something right, you would give them a treat. Oh, here, have a sucker. You did really good for your vaccination. Here's a sucker. you know, they're going to come back and be like, oh, wow, I like going to the doctor. I get suckers when I go there, you know, or like, for instance, my daughter, she loved going to the bank. Why? Because they gave her a sucker every time. She got to pick out what flavor she wanted. So it's the same kind of concept with your child, where if they do something good, we're going to allow them to have something nice, have a special treat. Oh, you know, if you finish your dinner plate, you know, you'll get a cookie. So in that instance, the behavior for the child would be finishing their food, their dinner, and then they get a reward. They're rewarded for that. Where if you look in the same kind of scenario going on our previous dog training, from when like we were younger and how our parents raised our pets, is instead it would be the child's not eating their dinner plate and you better eat that. You need to eat that. You're gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to eat a cookie if you don't eat that. And it's more of a negative kind of standpoint. So this is where positive dog training comes in, and that's why I really like it. So little background on positive dog training. So a lot of people have asked me, well, is this a new method? Is this fairly new method of training? And quite honestly, it's not. So positive dog training was, what's the proper word? The method was, had been developed by B.F. Skinner. And he was a psychologist, and he came up with this method of dog training back in 1940. So that's a long time ago. However, we didn't really start using it frequently until the 1990s. But still, the 1990s, and we're in 2019 right now. So it has been around for quite some time. And because it's been around and we're starting to be able to see more and more of the benefits from going this way versus punishment or discipline for actions. Like I had said before, like rubbing the puppy's nose in the soiled spot. Yeah, it teaches them, kind of. It teaches them, you know, my nose is being rubbed into my urine. Maybe I shouldn't urine, but they're not, or shouldn't urinate there. But they're not even necessarily associating it with that spot. They're associating it more with the urine itself. So then even when you take them out to an appropriate potty spot, they're a little more hesitant. Is it okay if I urinate here? Well, last time I urinated, my nose got rubbed into it. You know, they get a little bit more unsure. And part of that goes into understanding dog communication. And we'll kind of get into that as well. But instead, how positive dog training works is now they go out to the appropriate potty spot and urinate, and they get a reward. Whether it's praise or any of that, that's where the marker word is very important. The moment they are going potty, yes, yes, good girl, good boy. We want it to be a positive thing. It's a double relief. It's a double reward, because now they're evacuating their bladder, which feels good, gives them relief, as well as being reinforced by the marker word or the clicker, if you so choose to use the clicker. So that puts a different spin on things. Now they're like, oh, when I do this in this particular spot, I get rewarded. I get, yes, good girl. I get praise. I get treats. And that puts a different spin. That's why positive dog training is taking hold. It's really taking off, and we're seeing lots of benefits. The dogs are picking up the behaviors quicker, and they're responding better. So it's a matter of focusing on the positive versus dominance or punishment for unimproved behavior. And if you take that, if you use that technique of dominance and punishment what you can end up unintentionally doing is installing fear, and with fear can then lead into aggression, which is the exact opposite of what we want to do with dog training. We want to encourage a rewarding and fun training session, because then they're going to be far more likely willing to do the behavior. So it's a matter of going to your pet, your dog, and saying, I'm asking you to sit, versus you're going to sit or else. And that, even just in the mannerism that I just did there, would you rather somebody say, hey, will you sit for me? Or would you rather, you better sit or else? Somebody, I mean, that can be very intimidating. I would probably sit, but I don't know how long I would put up with that eventually. You know, it's like somebody poking you. Like, you can tolerate it for a while, and then after a while, it's like, hey, you better stop doing that. So that's where I really like working with the positive dog training, and that's really what it's all about. The AKC recommends this type of dog training, this method of dog training, and the reason why is because it grows a stronger bond between the pet and the owner. It develops a mutual respect and understanding. And with that, for further respect and understanding, you just, like I said, it creates a bond. You're not dominating over one or the other. Instead, you're a team, you're a family member. And really, let's face it, our pets are our family. They do become part of our family, and we don't want them to be afraid of us or feel uncomfortable or anything like that. Think of it this way. If you like to watch TV and somebody kept telling you or yelling at you and getting aggressive with you every single time you watch TV, that's not necessarily going to stop you from watching TV. It will stop you from watching TV around that person. So you're not really learning that, hey, maybe the TV isn't such a good thing. But if somebody came up to you and you were watching TV and you're like, hey, let's go get ice cream, and it distracts you away from the TV. And then every single time you see that person, you're like, hey, I'm watching TV, but you want to go get ice cream? That's a more positive spin on it. I could probably talk about this for hours, because I'm really very passionate about this method of building that trust, building that relationship between owner and pet can be an amazing thing. And that's part of the reason why I love dog training so much, because you can really see it happen. That moment where you see that connection happen between the pet and the owner it gives me goosebumps. So it does help in a lot of different ways, and that's why I really like positive dog training. So trying to sum it up a little bit, that is what positive dog training is all about: creating that bond, creating that trust, asking your pet, having your pet willing to do the behavior when you ask instead of demanding it. Why is dog training important? That's another question that I get quite frequently. Dog training is important for basic obedience, is one of the quickest answers. Everybody enjoys a well-mannered, friendly dog. Even with me in the vet field, I see many different types of animals on many different behavior skill levels, and pardon me. And I prefer going into an exam room where the dog's happy to see me and all happy and go lucky. But then you have the other responses where you go into a room and the dog may be growling. And most of the time they end up warming up, but it does make you feel a little uneasy. So it's nice on many different levels, on a more personal level with the owner, for instance. If you want to take your dog to a park and walk around without getting eyes from people because we might be barking or growling or whatever, we can have an obedient, friendly dog that everybody feels comfortable around, and in which case helps your dog feel more comfortable. So that's why dog training is important on one aspect. It also really enriches the dog's life. Let's think about it. Most breeds, most all dog breeds out there were designed for one specific type of purpose in life, whether it be a working dog, pulling sleighs, or we have a lot of like the border collies and collies in general that were designed, and they really, dogs were designed, that we as humans created most all these dog breeds, but we put many breeds together so that they could herd sheep, herd, ducks and chickens and wild livestock. So dogs need a purpose in one way or another. They were all designed for some kind of purpose. And by having the dog training, it gives them a purpose in life. Some breeds were made for protection. With the dog training and working with them and creating that bond, it helps strengthen that bond and helps make them feel like it's worth protecting this person. I want to protect this person, instead of, I'm kind of afraid of that person. I don't know how to act, So having that purpose is important for a dog's life. And if you think about it, we as people need to have a purpose in life, whether it be having a job or being a full-time mom, or, getting involved in arts and crafts. We have to have something, some kind of purpose in our life. And it's the same for dogs. So with this purpose, it can stop them from being bored. And this is another phrase I say a lot in my dog training. And if you've taken a class with me, you probably already know. A bored dog is a destructive dog. So one of my big complaints that I get from a lot of my clients is, my dog destroys my house. When I'm not at home, he, chews up the furniture, he chewed up my shoe. And depending on the age of the dog, some of that can be from teething. But sometimes when we're talking older dogs, well, why are they chewing up the shoe? Well, because they're bored. They haven't done anything all day. They woke up, they went for a quick walk, you ran out the door. Now what? Well, I'm going to sit here, I'm bored, haven't been worked, mentally stimulated in any way. That shoe looks pretty good. I'm going to tear up that shoe, But if we do dog training and they're getting that daily dose, and I ask my clients, I give all my clients get homework after their session, and it's a 15 minutes a day. Incorporate 15 minutes a day into your routine to work with your dog on dog training. It stimulates them. It kind of tuckers them out. And then after that, they're like, hey, maybe that shoe doesn't look as appealing anymore. I'm kind of tuckered out. I've gotten my mental stimulation. You can also incorporate dog puzzles. I love dog puzzles. It gets that stimulation, it gets those gears turning, and that's really what we want to focus on, is that. And that's where dog training really comes in. Incorporating your dog training into your daily routine really helps with boredom. So, for instance, I have my cat, Scaredy Cat. She has to sit before I give her meal anytime I give her a meal. She gets fed 3 times a day, and before I put the food down into the bowl, she has to sit. And then I also make her wait, because she's very impatient and she'll like headbutt me as I'm trying to put the bowl down. So I also incorporated wait. But that's something she does every day. That's mental stimulation for her every single day. Carmel Corbett asked, what is a dog puzzle? Which is a very good question. So a dog puzzle is very simple. You can get them at Petco, PetSmart, any kind of pet store, or you can make your own. So this is when one that I recommend all the time to do, it's cheap, is you get like a muffin pan and you put in a treat in, let's say, every third or fourth. You just kind of scatter the treats in there where they're not in any particular order. And then you're going to, in the muffin pan, on top of the treats and in the empty space of the muffin pan, you're going to put tennis balls. And then you give it down to your dog. And your dog has to figure out, one, where is the treat? And two, how do I get to the treat? Because it's a ball in a muffin pan. So if they nose at it, the ball's just going to spin. So now they have to really think about it and see, oh, hey, if I pick that ball up, I can get to that treat. Or if I really force my nose into it, the ball will fly out and I can get to that treat. So it's kind of like doing like a crossword puzzle for us, kind of. It's a very similar thinking process for them. How can I get to this treat? So that's what a dog puzzle is. That's the homemade dog puzzle. But you can go to PetSmart, Petco, Amazon has a lot of them, and they have different kinds. Some have where you put the treats underneath a cup and they have to figure out how to get the cup off to get to the treat. Some of them have mechanisms where they have to nose part of it up, and when they nose it up, the treat's in that spot. So there's many different types. I don't think that there's any one better than the other. I prefer, if you're just introducing a dog puzzle to a dog, I always recommend starting with the easier puzzles, like with like the muffin pan and the tennis balls, or the ones with the cups. And as they start to get accustomed and they start to learn how to do these dog puzzles, then you can change it up to the ones where they have the sliders. You can change up the difficulty a little bit with like the homemade one by maybe putting a stickier treat in the pan. So now they have to work to get to the treat a little bit more. But it helps stimulate them. So that's essentially, that's what a dog puzzle is, and that's how it's very beneficial to your pet, to help stimulate, get them thinking, get their mind going. And with dogs, they're much like with us. If you go on vacation and you're not thinking about anything and you're not stimulating your brain, I don't know about you, but when I come back from vacation and I start working again, it's kind of like I'm in a fog. Like, oh, how do I do this again? Takes me a little while to get back into that groove. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, here we go. This is what we do. And it's the same thing for them. Their brains get lazy, and if we don't continue to stimulate, they will get bored. They will lose some of that skill. And that's why I really like incorporating their dog training, their behaviors into their daily lives, because this is a constant thing they do, much like with all of our jobs. A lot of us do the same kind of things, repetitive, similar ways during our job. That's why we're so good at our jobs. And it's the same thing with dog behaviors for our pets and dog training. With dog training, we can learn dog behavior and how they communicate to help teach them the manners, the behaviors that we really want. I'll wrap it up. I can probably talk about that forever. I am going to go ahead and attach a link to that article I was telling you about with the AKC and positive dog training, so that you can learn more about that. Read that article. It's a very good article, very well written. I think it helps a lot with the understanding of what positive dog training is, so I'll add that in the link as well. And then, yeah, thank you all for joining me. Great questions. And it looks like I'll probably keep doing this, but let me know. Give me feedback. I'm sure there's people that are going to watch this after I repost it, so I want their input as well. So I will say goodbye from Barker Canine Academy. Thanks for joining me.